All right, guys. Ayebakuro here again. So, in this video, we'll be cleaning up our donations app we built in our last video, right? Where you can make donations and view donations. Yeah, yeah. All right. So, let's hide this. Okay. Great. So, in this last project, we had we used an MVC application, right? Where we have everything else we jumbled up. There was no major separation of concern. Like if you could see in the donations controller, we have so many of our business logic in here. This could be refactored and cleaned up, and we also had everything all jumbled up. Repositories were here, migrations. So yeah, in this video, I'll be cleaning this project up to follow the best practices, separation of concerns, and LLC injection and the rest. Okay, so what we'll be doing is we'll be dividing the project into libraries. So therefore, every unit has its own function it's doing, and in each libraries we'll have the individual codes that are supposed to be where they are supposed to be. All right. So first things first, let's start by creating new class libraries. So go to solutions, add new projects, class library. So generally, what I usually the major class libraries I usually have are the core data models, utility, then the parent integration application, the app itself. So since the app we already have the app class library, go ahead and add our core class library. So we have payment integration version that's 4, right? Yep. Create this sample class that's given to us. Add another one, new projects, class library, payments, integration, that's data, it's existing class, add new one, add new projects, bills, then finally utilities. Right, see? Okay, get rid of this demo class. This too. All right, so now that we have our class libraries, we want to be able to move the respective codes into their right places. So quickly, I notice I'm working on the previous branch, so I'll quickly create a new branch. Let's create a new branch so that way we don't mess things up in the main application in case things go south. Okay, so we'll name this branch. Okay, code refactoring. Create and check out to the new branch. So, right, we're on the new branch now. So all the changes we're making will be on the code refactoring branch. I'll be dropping the link to the GitHub in this video, in the description of this video. Okay, so we've had our class libraries. We want to be able to move some of the things. So first of all, what I'll be doing is I'll be getting rid of this migrations folder because I really want a complex, something complex when it's time to when we move our DB context. Okay, so migration folder is off. So this repository folder, right? We are going to be moving it to the data. We're basically moving the app DB context to the data. So we'll go ahead and create a folder for contexts and Drag AppDB context to our context, right? Then we'll get rid of this folder. And when moving applications, moving code across various different class libraries or folders, you should take note of the namespace, right? So quickly we are renaming this namespace to data data dot why isn't it okay? uh, Context. It has the right namespace for this. Great. So we notice that we still have some other errors here. So entity framework call is not found here. Right. So in order to do that, I would go ahead and start manage the Nugget package solutions. Solutions Nugget packages, right? So we can assign the right packages to where they belong. So starting with entity framework. Okay, what was that needed? Okay, entity framework is not found. Okay, so we'll assign this to data, right? Then install, accept. What else again do we need to move at this point in time? We'll be moving Paystack to core. So that's where we'll be handling our payment processing, payment service. We'll be moving okay, right framework called tools. We'll be moving tools to data. Accept. Okay, let's just go again, jump right in. So as you can see, we've solved one of our problems, right? Okay, so next will be the models. Let's solve the models problem. So let's move. We'll be moving our transaction model into the models folder. So before we do that, let's create a folder for our domain models, right? Then we move the transaction model to there. Then get rid of this. And same thing we did here, we come update the dot models dot. Okay, let's save this. And back here, we can now add the reference to our models. And there we go. We can get rid of this older models. So that is that for our DB context. That's for our DB context. All right, we can close that now. Okay, so let's move on to something else. Okay, I think okay. Next, we should dive into moving our view models. So because of I wouldn't want cross-reference issues, so I'm moving all view models into the models class library. That's in the wrong place. Add folder. Oops. Right. I always come into domain. I want to be yeah. Why? Oh, okay. Sorry. always be in the right place. Okay. Then we'll move our donate view model right into the view models. Get rid of that there, and the ritual once more again. Our namespace models dot view. Let's save this. All right, save this and that's that for the view model. Who else do we need to move off my head? Who else do we need to move? Okay, all right. Then, okay, let's see if anyone comes to mind, move them up. Let's jump right into our controller. So start with the this controller. Okay, yeah, so many reds. Okay, so basically in this donation controller, donate controller actually, we are initiating transactions in the initiating transactions with from the HTTP post, initiating transactions, and then we are redirecting the user to the authorization URL. So we wouldn't want to do all this in in our controller. So we'll be abstracting everything Paystack into its own service. So that way, anything transaction initialization, transactions confirm and verification, we'll be moving them into Paystack to a Paystack service. All right. So let's jump right into our core. Our core will be holding our services and add a new folder in core. All these services, right? In the services, we'll be adding, since we were doing we'll be injecting services, so we'll be creating interfaces for our services. So add a new folder. So the new folder, call it abstractions, another called implementations. Right. See? Okay, so in our abstractions, let's add the interface for the payment service. Okay, that's really payments service. Okay, great. Thank you, public. So basically, what this payment service, right? This method we're working on right now will be to for the initialize transaction. So let's go back to our net controller, and our initialize transaction basically returns a transaction initialized response from Paystack. Okay, so copy this and bring it in using paystack.net to be initialize transaction. Initialize transaction, and this will be taken in of the data view, the net view model. Model, we'll bring in the view model. Okay, so we add the reference to our models here. So go manage, sorry, add project reference. We're selecting models. Yeah, so that way now we can now bring in our net view model. Okay, we'll clear up on what we're not using, the using statements we're not using, methods. Right, save this and into our implementations folder, let's add the main class. All right, so this will be the payment service. Payment service. Service will be 13 payment service. So quickly we implement the interface in this, right? Okay, great. So now that we've done that, let's quickly bring in the codes from what's so back at our controller, right? We initially we prepare a transaction initialize request, right? Then let's quickly copy that. Okay, here. Then what else do we bring in at once? Let's just bring in this guy. Okay. Right. So where do we start from? Okay, we started connected already. Oh, remember, I don't know if you watched the last video, but remember we had a method that was generating our random reference numbers for Paystack. So this method here needs to be since it's a utility method, I will add it to the utilities class library. So let's create a new new class. Let's call this class ref gen to be a static class. Let's make you public, and we'll bring in the method. Since our generates is already static, which we just in case we need to add other methods that will be non-static methods. All right, see, save this, clean up this, and back to our payment service, right? We'll be using ref and generates. And where is ref then coming from? We add reference to utilities, and that is one error off. Okay, so Paystack is next. We want to bring in Paystack into this service. First, we bring in add a constructor, right? And that will be bringing in an I configuration. We have to install the Microsoft Extensions configuration to construction. Find and install latest version. Okay, great. This will call this infected here. Okay, quickly we'll rename this and this. Yeah. Okay, so now we've gotten configuration, right? Up next will be configuration will be giving us our token. So let's have a private token. To be the paystack token. So remember in our let's go back to our destination controller in the constructor here. Yep, we have a token, right? I think there's a mistake here. Yep. All right. We'll be bringing in paystack. So let's first of all set token be equal to who in this when I could just copy and paste. Okay, so configuration. So token will be bringing in our token from our from the apps settings.json, right? And up next will be coming in. Up next coming in will be paystack. We where we initialize paystack here. You okay? So that's has solved our issue. So paystack has been brought in. Paystack the transaction reference, transactions of initialize, and that is that for initialize transaction method. And of course, let's return the response comes from transaction. And that's for this. We are done with this, right? Okay, let's clean up this for what we're not using and back to our controller. So now that we have we've taken the payment service to its own rightful service, right? We'll need a service that will be handling I'll be handling our donation, where we can create donation, make donations, verify donations, and get donations. Okay, so let's jump right back into our core where we have our services and add any abstractions for the interface for our donation service. Okay, so let's call it I donate service. Oh, I donate. Okay, on no, intended. All right, so and what we'll be doing in this service? What we'll be doing in this service? The first method we'll be doing in this service would be make donation. Okay, so donation should what should that service return? Okay, it will be returning a string. Basically, what we'll be needing is the callback URL, since since we're redirecting the user to this URL authorization URL. So basically, we want to return the string. Okay, so it will be it's going to be part of string, part of string, hopefully. And let's just um information, right? And what will this be taking in? It will be taking in, of course, our big boy, the net view model. Create the view model. Yeah, yeah, P, right. Save that. Then we go ahead and create the service itself. Add the new class service. And that will be, of course, inheriting from the iDonate service. Okay, and let's implement the interface. Great. So I think this guy also will be needing a constructor. So we thought we can inject the event service into it. Okay, so constructor will be taken in. Let's have a event service here. Event service, call it event service. Create a field for that. We rename this guy to service I. Okay. All right. So complement services in. Let me the nation controller. What's going on here? So basically, we'll be calling the payment service to initialize transaction, and we'll be passing in the donate view model to it. That will do its business and return a response, and we'll check the response if it is successful, and go ahead to we'll go ahead to respond return with the authorization URL. Okay, so let's start with okay. So var this guy implement service gives us when return gives us a transaction response in return. So let's call that a response transaction response. equals to payment service dot initialize transaction, and we're passing in the NET, which is of course a donate view model, right? So we check if transaction response queue from okay. Transaction response or status successful, right? We want to do what we were doing before, all right? So we're saving, we're creating a new transaction model and saving that to the database. Okay, okay. That being the case, all right, let's go ahead and copy this. Okay, this and then yep, this new transaction model. Transaction model is coming in from domain. Okay, then see if the reference has that. Okay, what does the next thing have? All right, okay. Um, let's get transaction response dot data dot reference. Let me have reference. Yeah, class reference. Great. So this reference is coming from the what we initialize payments with. So before I was getting it directly from when it was generated, but then no need, there's no point for that anymore since we can get it from transaction reference and we'll have access to that. We'll have access to the initialize. Yeah, it was generated inside the initialized transaction. Okay, donate dot name, donate dot amount. Okay, so transaction was so now up next we'll be adding saving this to the database. Okay, so we don't have a repository for that purpose. I would love to use a repository to handle the saving, right? Yeah, initially we're going ahead to do this inside our controller. Bad practice, very, very bad practice. But nonetheless, it was not to distract us from our goals. Okay, so let's move on to our data and add our repositories. Okay, repositories. Okay, repositories. Basically, our repositories will be what repository do we need? We need a repository for transactions. So our repositories will basically be communicating with our database, right? Their own job, the single job is just to get data from database or save data to database. That's just what repositories will be doing. Okay, and we would like to also abstract that. So let's do actions, actions, and the implementations for the repositories. So the purpose of this of refactoring this video is because I'll be moving up using the same code base to explain some other key concepts or to be my example projects basically for most of my videos. So I would want this video to be clean and using the best practice, the best practices. So when adding features to the code base, we won't have to clean it up then anymore. All right. Okay, so we'll have the abstractions and let's add the interface for transaction repository. Okay, transaction repository. Naturally, I'm supposed to be, I'll be using unit of work alongside the generic repository for my project. Or I think I'll be sticking to this for now. Maybe in another video, I'll be explaining unit of work. Yeah, and I'll probably use this project to explain unit of work. Okay, so this transaction repository, what will this first method be doing? We want to be able to save transactions. Okay, so saving would having it's gonna be tax. So when we save, we don't be having anything, it won't be returning anything basically. So yep, save. Save. And this will be taking in transaction. So if we were using the transaction model, right? So I have named transaction model. So I think we should rename this across the board. Let's rename transactions first, then and we'll rename this guy to become transaction. We're in this model. Yeah, and we'll like to rename across everywhere. Yeah, great. That works. Okay, so transaction. And then what we'll be doing next in this same will be another tax of we want to we want to get all transactions. We get the transactions, I guess. Transaction, yeah, the license rescue. I think those are two methods we are currently using now. We do want to write code for what we are not using and end up not using it. Okay, so move on up to the implementation. This guy. Close the core. Yeah, we're in data. Implementation, add class action. The tree and plus inheriting from the guy. Okay, so we want to implement the interface, right? Two methods. Great. So over here we'll be needing our so we can bring in our DB context. So DB context is named app DB context. So context, context, so fields. Right. Rename this guy. So I've been using the F2 shortcuts to rename. So noted if you either you use F2 or you right click and click on rename. Okay, so we'll be putting our context and okay. So let's start with saving a transaction. All right, save transaction async. basically we'll be calling our let's create context dot transaction wait dot async async transaction, right? Great. Then we will also want to save changes async. I really need to do the unit of work video. So that way, unit of work video and generic repositories. That way, we wouldn't have to be creating several of these methods since they are generic. They could become generic methods, and we use them across just passing the class type, and we don't have to repeat ourselves because this is not basically we're repeating ourselves across every other repository. Okay, moving on. Get all transactions. Let's quickly implement this. Get all transactions will be var trans. We need to do that. Okay, let's just return. Let's just return its context dot transactions dot select text in lambda t dot to there should be a to list async method, and that is coming from different method. And we have an asynchronous method to get all transactions. So I think we're done with this repository. And save, close your interface. Okay, so we're back to the donate service. So now that we've done that, we'll be bringing in the transaction repository. Oh my God, you need to work. You need to work. So bring in the I transaction repository. Transaction repository coming in from data, reference to data, transaction repository. Quickly field for this. Right, so I'm renaming this using F2. Apply, can get rid of this. Okay, so now we have a transaction repository brought in. We want to be able to save this transaction. This guy needs to be an asynchronous. So let's await save transactions async. IntelliSense to the rescue. I'm currently using the Visual Studio 2022 preview, although yeah, the official version is already out, and it comes with this beautiful intelligence that observes that it's an AI powered intelligence that looks at your previous codes and the way you write your codes and offer predictions. Okay. So- Okay, so transaction has been saved. Situation I think. Yep. What we're doing next after saving the transaction. Oh yes, okay, we want to return the transaction URL. Okay. Then transaction response dot data authorization URL. It's a string, right? So this is for when it's successful. If it isn't successful, we want to, what kind of exception should we call this? Let's try a new exception. Exception, and we pass in the message reason why it wasn't successful. So transaction response dot message. Yeah, so notice that it's no longer shouting anymore because we've covered all return statements. Okay, so that's that for our donate service. Okay, let's save this. Now we can go back to our controller and get rid of all the unnecessary codes. Okay, so no longer need this guy anymore. We don't need you no more. Okay. Okay, let's find somebody at least. Okay. Okay, great. And so we want to quickly bring in our transaction donate service. To bring in our donate service, we won't be using context in here anymore because okay, I'll clean it off when it's time. So let's bring in our donate service. So it's I donate service that's coming in from the reference to our core, right? Yep, yeah. Let's raise to our core. That would be insurance service. Insurance service, and we'll put the needful add a field, you can assign field, donate service, and okay, then this field to okay. So registration service is brought in, right? So yeah, okay. I still have it messed up. Yes, so our response, or let's call it results. Let's use the try catch. So you have right we are creating an exception, right? So let's use the try catch and have a results will be equal to let's call donate service dot needs, and that needs a donate view model which is covering it. So passing our donates. Okay, so this guy has changed. We are bringing in. Let's bring in the right guy. No more shouting there. Okay, so when it's successful, um, the result is basically a URL, right? So we'll be returning redirects. You return redirects to results, which result is our authorization URL. Okay, yep. This is a yeah. Of the results first. Okay, so for when exceptions are being caught, right? We want to okay return the view back. Remember that we are handling the exception. We are handling errors on our init view. So if exception is caught, let's get the exception. Okay, we want to error will be exception dot message, which was also passed in. and return view. So we've just successfully cleaned up our post method for donate. Okay, so these two are working. Because of these errors, I would love to take it for a spin, but let's do further cleanup. Okay, so now that we're done with the adding donations, let's get work on getting donations. So you can see here now we are doing what we did in the transaction service. So we will not be needing this guy anymore. So variation transaction will be equals to that will be equals to for transaction. Sorry, donate service. But we haven't done get donations yet, so that should be next. So back to our donate service. Let's go back to the interface so we can add that to the high collection. High collection of transactions. Transaction. Yep, from it's improving it's it sounds weird because since we are naming it naming another transaction and we are naming the methods to donation. So do we K K let's ignore that for now. So get donations and we go to the service to donate service and yep, shouting let's implement the interface. And here we have the get donations, right? So excuse me, we already have the transaction repository getting us our donations, our transactions, donations, right? We are getting those transactions here. So just go ahead and call, let's return for transaction repository dot. Okay, since it's an asynchronous, so we have to await it. And we're done here. So back to our Blah. Right, so donation service dot get all donations. Yeah, and that's for donations. Okay, that's getting to donations. So we are verifying transactions. The naming of these methods are pretty off, and it's getting me confused. Okay, so let's move on to the verify method, where we verify transactions based on the reference. Okay, so our payment service will be the one handling that. So let's add that to our payment service. So payment service verify will be returning the transaction verify response. Let's verify transaction. And this guy needs a picking a string and reference. Okay, so let's dive in and implement this interface. So into the payment service, we want to implement interface. right? So clear this off. What was our controller doing? Let me leave him off his job. Okay, so it's getting the response from Paystack. Okay, so transaction response. Let's copy this. Right, so we already have Paystack brought in constructed in our constructor, so we have it accessible to all other methods. So the status is success. Let's just return. Go ahead and return the response. Return verify single responsibility. Okay, and yep, clean. I think we're done with the main service. So we've done verification and we've done initiation, initializing. So we're done with payment service, right? So this verified transaction would be happening. This logic here will be happening in the donate service, right? So we want to verify donations since we don't have. Okay, so let's have a tax. What we need here that is so we're saving the data to database. So we're updating the data in database, right? And we redirect the nations without new nothing special. So it can be a void, method. So it's just tax and so, right, verify the nation. Okay, and what we need is the string of reference. What we need because we have the reference saved to the database. We want to update that. Okay, so our automation service can implement the interface. Okay, so basically, this guy will be our results will be equal to transaction repository repository payment service. So do we have payment service here? Yes, we do have payment service here. Payment service dot verify transaction. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's hijack this logic. I think the best way to if sort of state use if result dot data use success. Best to have this guy in a in a constant as a constant. So let's quickly add it. So someone can't just let's add a new class. What do we call this class? ideal name to call this, considering reusability of some names, of some names that will be, so it will be property of string public string. Okay, let's call this guy here payments. Let's call it as payments. Payment sources equal to, yeah, save, save. So that way, so if result of data dot status is equals to constant ought to be static. So to be payment status. Let's bring this guy in from utilities. Payment status dot success. Yeah. If it is successful, then we want transactions to be equal. We want to get transactions. Okay. So I guess we still have our transaction repository. Let's quickly go into our transaction repository. We don't have get transaction by reference. So let's create that. So go to the, so let's tags of transactions reference sync. Again, a string of reference. Okay. Let's go back to the repository and interface. Okay, so we want to return one of its text functions. First of default, I think. Okay, transaction, but reference, ref, reference. Beautiful. Listen, let's keep save that. So, yep. So back to our donation service. We want to replace this with, let's call repository dot reference, I think. Reference. Okay. If transaction is equal to null, it's not equals to null. We want to update transaction. Okay. Oh yeah, I have to await this guy. Okay. And once that is done, okay, we want to be able to update transaction. So back to our transaction repository. We want to update transactions, so it's going to be a tax. Update is not really a tax. It's not a tax. It's not asynchronous method for update. So it's going to void that updates. Okay, in transaction. Okay, so back to our implementation. What we need to do here is context, transform it. Yeah, obviously, okay, we have to save, so can't be void anymore. Have to be tax. So we are with context, but save changes. So um, our this guy needs to be updated now. Yes. Okay. So back to our donate service. We have handled the update part. So let's production repository. That's transaction. Rename that. Okay, so this also has to be wait. Wait. Let's go to our we need to rename this guy. Okay. Save. I think we're done with the repository. Hopefully. Excuse me. Okay. It has been saved, updated, and it has been saved. So don't need you. Now redirect to okay, we won't be redirecting to action here. Rather would so yeah. Mm, that's just that for the service. It's a void. Yep. So if it's successful, do that. Else we want to throw again exception, exception, and from the false message. Save this. Oh yes, and we're done with the verified transaction donation service. So back to our controller. Okay, so we don't need Paystack to do this work anymore, right? We can catch here because we don't have a globalization handler. So for this guy, view data, it's yeah, and to be section message. Okay, so let's quickly use the gateway response instead as gateway response. Gateway response will be the best, yeah. Instead of result.message, let's return result.data response. So the section.message. Yep, and will be directing to the back to the index action to the what the donate view. While here will be calling our into await this guy. Wait, donation service dot verify donation reference. Yes. Done. We want to return redirect action. Who are we redirecting to? We want to redirect to donations. Put in same controller. That's redirect to donations. All right, so we have successfully. Okay, won't be needing this guy anymore. Zero reference, of course. Okay, we've done get all donations. We've done donates, and we've done verify donation. So let's clean up one with next. We're no longer using app to be context. Are we using configuration? Okay, so Paystack is no longer being used here. Earlier off, no longer used here. No longer used. And there we have it. See have an error here. Repository. I'm using it later. So let's clean up this guy. Great. Hopefully we should take this guy for a spin shortly. Okay. This stack is no longer used. So we have successfully made our controller how it ought to be. If we're doing global exception handling, we wouldn't be needing this try catch anymore. It will be automatically handled for us. But I think that should be for another video. So we note it down. Okay. Right. If this controller has been cleaned, let's. I think we need to clean up some of the views, like the donations view. Oh yes, that's the list of. Okay, so transaction model is being used here in the index view. Okay, not in here. All right, so let's go to the view imports. To views and view imports. So payment integration.models, error model, then models dot domain. Domain. Okay, I think this would count for the donations view. And we're no longer using transaction model. It's no longer called transaction model, it's now called transaction. Yep, that error has been cleared off. Save this. Donations view. Donates view would also have issue. Great. So we'll be having reference to the view models also in our view imports. save that. Okay, I think from the top of my head, these are the two views that would have been having issues. Okay, all right. And error list. Yep, zero errors. Great. One last thing to do. Remember, we deleted the migrations and we moved our DB context to data. So we want to be able to run migrations back. No changes were made to the models. So let's just test that, confirm that our. Oh, okay. So we've been creating interfaces and right, we've been integrating interfaces and using them, but we'll have to inject those interfaces. We'll need to inject those interfaces. Okay, yep, that's complete. First problem. I'm not using repository here anymore. So let's bring the right guy in the database, data context. Good. That is one guy. We have a bunch of repositories that were being used. Would have to inject those guys. Okay. So services. So services dot code. So which one of them will be? Let's start with our repositories. Okay, just one. We have a I transaction repository. Transaction. Transaction repository is supposed to be coming from repositories, instructions, implementation. Why am I not getting that? Yeah. Yes. And public. Just oh, okay. Implementation. Oh, valid. Okay. Right, that's one. Who's next? Context is already injected in our core of services. Okay, so let's put the idle needs service. Okay, I guess let me make this class public. again. Okay, what's next? Services starts. Obviously, all the implementations I wasn't. Okay. So these are the two injections. These are the two interfaces that needed to be injected. Okay, that has been done. Right. So I was saying, I want to test that my DB context that I moved can create migrations. So we'll be going to our package manager console, console, and changing this to data. That's where what is holding our DB context, and let's add migration. Initial. That's crossed. Oh, that worked. Great. Um, let's update our database. Maybe to look at the but field, field. Okay. So our migrations went to where did they go to? Yep, the right place. Oh, migration is not being found. Okay, so what is missing? Um, yeah, we need to. Yep, so we didn't add that data class library. Um, why? Okay, yes, manage the package. So we're supposed to have tools, design. Let's quickly add if for design this guy. Let's use current version we're using the version 5. Okay. Okay. What else is installed here? That's oh, we have this guy. Just install the design. Let's wait. Hmm. Okay, certain guys are missing. Okay, so let's go ahead and my arms with design installing. Let's manage. Okay, let's add framework call. It's already installed the data. Tools is installed to data. Oh, snap. Instructions. No. Okay. Let me quickly pause this video, then we'll go back to just quickly pause this video, then we'll go